Welcome to In the Waterweeds. This is the parts 9 and 10. I think this is our 5th In the Waterweeds for Drums of Autumn. And we're so excited that you're here. If you're here with us live, talk to us on Twitter with hashtag In the Waterweeds. And I'm going to start out this week by saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that In the Waterweeds has been postponed so many times. Last week I was at the beach and I just couldn't get myself off of the beach in order to come and sit and talk on the internet for an hour. And also I didn't read the parts I was supposed to read because I was at the beach. So I'm sorry that it's been postponed. And I'm sorry that last week, because I postponed it, I said, hey, let's do section 11 too. And also with 9 and 10, because I didn't have time to do that. And I didn't do it.
That's a terrible idea.
Yeah. It's called Getting Hungry Eyes. I look at it and I'm like, I can read that much in a week. And I just don't because I'm reading other things. So I'm sorry for anybody who went ahead and read and thinks that we're finishing up at this time or we're getting close to the end. We're not. We're just doing 9 and 10. And be glad you get one more episode of In the Waterweeds before we head off to hang Outlander. Where did Nikki go?
I know, where's she?
Hopefully she comes back soon. She'll be back. There she is. So hi, I'm Beth. I'm having sweet tea. And it's Twilight week. I've been thinking about Twilight a lot. And so every time I have tea, I think about Rob's terrible delivery on iced tea on the porch when he's in Eclipse. It's terrible. And he's trying to
totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I really hate the delivery of that entire section of Eclipse. And every time I have sweet tea, I think about him saying that and how bad it was. So that's what's happening in my brain right now. Everybody else say hello. Nikki, say hi.
Hi, I'm Nikki. I'm having a sparkling black cherry water thing because I got to drive after this. But I read the whole thing because I thought we were finishing. So I'm ready to talk about the whole thing on Twitter with anyone. And my tagline was better than Voyager? Question mark, question mark, question mark. I'm just putting it out there. Okay. Anyway. Amy.
Wow. Hey y'all, it's Amy. I'm drinking, I think you call it a Nebbiolo. I go to the wine store now and I just have her tell me what I need to get that's less than $20. And that's what she gave me this week. And for those of you who can't see and are just listening, I'm wearing teddy bear sweatshirt. So I'm already glamming up the midterms early. I see that Beth has her I voted sticker. I can see it.
I do. I voted today.
Yay.
It was great.
How does early voting work in Tennessee?
Say that again.
How does early voting work in Tennessee?
There are about 13, well, at least I think in Shelby County, which is the county I'm in, there are 13 polling places that are open in different parts of the county. And you just go to anyone that you want. And you have to bring your ID.
Yeah.
An ID. And then that's it. You just vote.
Yeah, that's amazing. That should be everywhere.
So, absolutely. Same day registration, early voting everywhere.
Yeah, early voting here has been really great. I've always done it. And there's one literally right down the street. I used to have to go a little bit farther and now I don't. And it was great. There were a lot of people there. There was like 15 people in line and the line stayed steady the whole time my husband and I were there. And it was chill. It was good.
Good.
Anyway, Jana, say hello.
Hello. I am drinking scotch tonight. Scotch whiskey. My favorite. I've spent the last year and a half looking for this particular scotch because they just don't really sell it much in the States. And I found it a couple weeks ago in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I'm really excited.
What is the name of it? Say that. I know nothing about scotch.
Either.
It's Tomatin, the Tomatin distillery, and it's called Cuboken.
Oh, is it a smoky scotch? Is it?
So it's like a Highland scotch that's not smoky, but they added a little bit of smoky. So it's the best thing I've ever tasted, ever. So
I wonder if you get really bad scotch, if you could just add liquid smoke that you can buy at the grocery store.
Then it tastes like a steak.
I'm going to try that.
That's probably what the distilleries do.
It's definitely what they do.
Yeah.
But that's a great segue into the distillery part of this thing that I didn't really understand. Anybody want to talk about it real quick?
Who was at a distillery?
Some guy named Tom is like he's the cooper.
Oh, I totally,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't
thought
pay
it was
attention
Bonnet.
to any of that. I could give a rip.
Well, he makes good barrels for whiskey. He knows.
Apparently, the best ones.
And he's like young and single or widowed and seems like a decent dude, but then Claire seems to hate him for some reason.
She thinks that he's too honest. She thinks that because he's direct and looks right at you, that he's hiding something.
That makes
That's
zero
sound.
sense.
It's such,
Sound thinking.
it's such a weird character, like switcheroo. You're like, what? He's too direct? But
He
he's a
seems
good
like
keeper.
they would be friends.
Yeah, I mean, I think he sounds like a good guy, and I love that I love the word Cooper. I mean, like I know people whose last name is Cooper or whatever, but like a Cooper is a barrel maker.
Yeah.
What in the world is happening with trades in the colonial era? I mean, why is it the name Cooper?
Oh gosh.
It's probably some Latin or who knows, some terminology from another language they brought over.
I feel like this is something that the Twitterverse should be able to answer for us in the middle. Like, someone knows this or can
Come
wiki it.
on, Twitter.
There are definitely people who know exactly why it's called Cooper, and they know this guy's name exactly because I keep thinking his name is like Tom, and it's probably
His name
something
is
else.
his name is Ronnie Sinclair.
Ronnie
That's
Sinclair. Thank you, Jana. She's
And I
over
only
at
remember
Oxford.
I only remember that because my mom's maiden name is Sinclair. So Ronnie is like my people. So that's the only reason I remembered.
Wait, your mother's maiden name is Ronnie, not Sinclair?
No, her maiden name is Sinclair.
Oh, but Ronnie is your kind of people.
Yes, because he's a Sinclair. So
I
that's
gotcha.
why the name
Oh,
stuck.
I get it. Sorry. I've
Don't
had
ask me any other random names in the series. I couldn't tell you, but Ronnie Sinclair stays with me.
I do remember Graham
Oh, Hawkins,
Menzies.
do you remember?
In this section, there's a guy named Graham Menzies.
Oh yeah, I
What's
saw
he
that.
think?
I was like, oh, Tobias.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
because it's like Graham McTavish and Tobias Menzies mashed together in a fandom name and a ship name. But I
What's
don't know
the
who he
name of
is.
the dude that she really hates, but he's kind of an asshole to everybody? He's like one of the fisher folk. Has he even shown up yet? Is he the one that has the mom that dies and then rises from the dead? What's his name?
I don't
I
remember
feel like
that.
you're talking about something from scripture and not
Yes.
drums of
I am
autumn.
talking about the book of 1 Corinthians.
That's what it sounds like.
Two Corinthians, I believe.
2 Corinthians.
The people of Ephesus in the book of Ephesians.
My dad says Ephesus a lot. He's a pastor, and it's funny to me. Like he
Ephesus.
knows what Ephesus is. I mean, he does, but it still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Because it's so dumb. It's like this ancient city that anyway it doesn't.
It sounds like a venereal disease. I got the Ephesus.
Oh yes, Mystery Redhead, Cool Story Mare just said, doesn't Ronnie draw very sexy ladies on the barrels because he can't find a girlfriend?
That would be more a reason to hate
Yes.
him than him being too honest.
So basically, Ronnie discovered pornography. Claire runs into everybody.
It cracks me up that we were sitting there talking about Ronnie Sinclair, who is barely in this section at all, and none of us remembered that the reason that he's even in it
At all.
is because he was drawing.
We wasted a lot of time trying to figure out what Cooper means. So much time.
But seriously, Brianna walks in and he's drawing, I guess, a picture of her naked
Okay.
on some
He must
charred
be
wood.
really good at that wood burning for her to recognize
Like
herself.
a right, Nikki. Like that seems, that
Yeah.
seems difficult.
Or she's just full of herself, which I'm prone to believe. And she's like, oh, that's me. Look at those boobs. Looks exactly
Tall
like
lady, big titties. It's me.
Not the first man to draw naked pictures of me and Ash.
Yes. It is kind of funny that she thinks it's her. Maybe he got embarrassed and it made it obvious that it was her. Who knows?
Who knows?
Or she's just full of
Unnecessary.
herself.
Claire thinks the world revolves around her, so why not her daughter?
That's true.
She definitely does too. The daughter.
And unbelievably so. And it's such a
Oh,
weird
yeah.
way. Let's talk about Brianna a little bit because she's all up in this section. We can't get away from her, which is just a reminder, guys.
It's coming.
She's
So
influenced
much
upon
Sophie.
us.
Yeah.
4 is coming, and
I'm real worried at how important she is to the story to know that Sophie Skeleton is portraying her. I was like, this is worrisome.
guys, we've said it over and over again. It's not something we enjoy saying, but Sophie's no good. It's going to be rough.
Stars tweeted something out of the actors talking about their secret skills. And I was like, what's your secret skill? Acting? Like, when you going to pull that one out?
No. All she can do is roll her tongue.
Wig. All I could see too in that promo was their awful wigs. Everyone has like this weird straight hairline. Everyone obviously has a wig on. It's terrible.
It is terrible.
Why would they just let them have their hair? Like,
yeah. I'm looking at Nikki right now. She looks like a delightful redhead. You have this beautiful thick hair. It's red.
It's moving it forward for us.
I'm adjusting it. My hairline.
I mean, I know people that wear wigs all the time. Like, I know ladies who wear wigs all the time and their hair looks better.
Yeah.
It's not like wearing a wig is difficult. I don't know why it's so hard. I have hair in my face right now. I wish I was wearing a wig. I don't know why they make it so awful on the show. Why is Jamie's so funky? Why is her hairline so bad?
Especially when the actress herself has long red hair, or at least could be tinted. I don't know how hair color works unless it's bleach, but
I mean, they could dye her hair red, yeah.
Yeah.
I assume they do it for like continuity's sake. Like, we know her hair is always going to look like it's in this little ponytail and that's always going to be this way. It must be, but God, it's awful.
It takes you out of the scene.
It does.
Yeah, I'm okay with it if the actor has been filming something else and their hair is all chopped off or it needed to be a different color or whatever. I just don't think that, I don't understand why it's as significantly bad as it is, especially because they pay so much attention to, honestly, they pay so much attention to clothing and so much attention to set design and things like that, the music. There's so many other creative aspects of the show that are done so super well, and so much effort is put into making sure that they're part of the show and their own character. And for the hair specifically, but hair and makeup to be, I guess not makeup is fine, but like for the hair to be as bad as it is just it's wrong. It's wrong.
It is.
But yeah, Brianna. Do we dislike Brianna as a character at this point?
Yes.
I mean, in 9 and 10, she makes some really strange choices and goes about things in very strange ways. But also, she's the kind of the linchpin, but holding the emotional center of Jamie together in this particular section of the book, in this particular part of his life. And it's very sweet to see him finally see his own flesh and blood with Claire. And how do we actually feel about her overall as a whole?
I've never been a huge fan of Brianna. I've always been a huge fan of Roger. I just find, I like Brianna fine. She's kind of annoying. She's always noticing when people have eaten onions. She's headstrong, like in a really dipshit way. I do not understand why you travel through the Stones alone, fine. You get there, you find family, then you go over to the United States, you've lived, and then you run into Roger, and they allow each other through misunderstanding or miscommunication or just being idiots to be separated from each other, and that makes zero sense to me. Yeah. If I'm from another time into this crazy wild world, I don't give a shit what kind of argument we're having. I'm not letting you leave my sight.
Agreed. Yeah. And the reasoning is so dumb. Like, she could have stayed with them. He doesn't know where she's going. She doesn't know where she's going. There's no Google Maps. Like, there's no easy way to find anything. Don't leave each other. Do not leave each other. I know it's obviously a plot point for all these other things to happen, but it was a really dumb storyline.
Yeah. I mean, he's leaving to get money, right? He's leaving to
find those jewels so that they can leave and go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, go together. And if you do need to separate them, then you can find some kind of like zany Benny Hill way that like, oh my gosh, there's a crowd of people in the market and we lost each other. And now, because there's no cell phones or whatever,
Yeah.
and you could lose each other. But the fact that they willingly separate from each other.
Right. And for kind of a dumb
boggles
reason,
my
too.
mind.
Yeah.
Like, did you guys, like, okay, he kept that bit of information from her. Maybe not the smartest thing, but was it worth getting in a fight over? I felt it was a little overwrought. Like,
Well, that's kind of one of the major points that I have against Brianna in this section of the book, and then kind of forever. I mean, I felt that way when she's fighting with Claire in the second book. She loses her temper really easily in a way that I would never do. And I'll fast forward to the end of section 10, where she starts really fighting with Jamie, and they're getting up in each other's faces about what he did to Roger and about him trying to get her married to Ian. And I would never speak to my dad like that. I would not speak to anybody that I respected and loved like that. And it just fires me up that they are so mean and hateful and say some really horrible things to each other constantly. I just don't understand. Like, I do not get that kind of like fiery, horrible temper out of the gate, like as soon as you're mad about something. And I just find it a little unbelievable, especially because when she finds out what he did to Roger, what's the last thing she says? I'm sorry I ever saw you or ever met you. And I'm just like, what? Like, y'all have had this super duper emotional relationship in a short amount of time. Like, this is the long lost father you never knew, and you look just like him, and it's 200 years in the past. I mean, you've bound to have like some major attachment issues just to the fact that it's so miraculous. How can you say something so hateful and like run out of the room? Like,
and they've had this like beautiful cuddle session like the night before, where she's like crying in his arms and they're whispering like sweet nothings in Gaelic, and then the next day she's calling him a bastard and wishing she'd never seen him.
Yeah, it's a lot. I just don't understand how she flies off the handle so quickly. She did it to Roger too, and it makes me mad.
I don't understand the temperament. I guess I grew up, my mom was always like, don't say something you wish you could take back or regret. Don't ever put something out there like that. And they even talk about not meaning what they're saying, but still fighting that way. And it's like very, I don't know, just turn me off. I think I like do not like her 75% of the time as a character.
She's messy. There's not a hill that she won't die on. Like, relax.
Yeah.
Have some emotional intelligence. And also, don't leave your boyfriend.
Husband.
Or
hand-fasted husband.
It's like that scene in Cold Mountain where they want to fuck so bad, and so she's like, I marry you, I marry you, I marry you, and then they're married, so then they can do it without feeling guilty.
Sounds like what I did in the 8th grade. No, I did not do that in the 8th grade. Internet forever. I did not. But yeah, I don't understand why they leave each other either, especially because it's not just the fight that makes them separate. I mean, she's mad at him and she goes and she sleeps, but they made a plan. She's like, no, I have to meet Jamie right now. I know where he is.
Because he was going to be there for the trial.
Right. And she's like, I have to do this now because Lizzie is sick and I need to get her to my mom and I can meet him now. I don't have to wait and get all the way to Cross Creek. But at the same time, she knows that if she goes to Cross Creek, she can find
he'll end up there
all along. Yes, she knows where he's going to be. She could even find Fraser's Ridge without going to Cross Creek. And it's so stupid for her to think she has to do it right now. She spent months looking for him. It's not something that's time sensitive. It's not as time sensitive as she's making it out to be. Whereas Roger's point, I've got to go back to this ship and get this stuff, that is kind of time sensitive. And really, she doesn't even really have to do anything. She doesn't have to go with him where it's dangerous. She could stay exactly where she is. She has enough money to stay in that tavern and wait for him to get back. And the fact that they planned not to do that is asinine and a really bad plot point.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Agreed.
super duper hate it. But let's discuss their reunion because it is one of my least favorite reunions of two people who haven't seen each other in a long time. And
you mean Roger and Bree's reunion?
Yep.
Doing it in the shed.
No, I mean when they see each other for the first time.
Oh, when they fight.
Oh yeah. Why would you run into a tavern, freak out and start yelling and draw attention to yourself when you are a time traveler who is trying to stay under the radar, who just skipped ship down the road? You want to run in and like cause a big scene? Like this seems the dumbest thing.
It doesn't. Yeah. And not only is it dumb on his part, like I get maybe like an overwhelming amount of emotion when he sees her and she's like wearing pants, and that shouldn't even bother him because even though they're in a different time, he's probably used to seeing her in pants. Like it's not. He's used to seeing women in pants. But like he like assaults her. He's like grabbing her and shaking her. He's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "You're coming with me right now." And he's like going to take her out of the tap. None of it makes sense.
No,
none of it.
And it seems very against his character. If he's kind of like an enlightened college professor-y type, like why would he do that? It just doesn't seem Roger-y.
There's so much in this part of the book that is action happening, not because the characters would ever really do that, but because the plot demands it. And it's annoying because there's so many other ways to get them to where you need to get them. They could have had a fight. I mean, he could have just, Lizzie didn't even have to be fighting with her. Lizzie could have, seen anything. And this is, it's characters doing things that characters wouldn't do.
Yeah. I mean, Lizzie could have seen them actually having a very amorous reunion or a happy reunion or just a lustful reunion and had the same reaction later on, thinking that he was hurting her, thinking, she could have had the exact same thought process about who he was and what happened with him and Brianna and never had seen, and if they had never had any kind of fight or never had separated in any kind of real horrible way, or him, because they fought when they saw each other at the beginning and they fight as they are leaving. And so she gets this whole wrong picture, and she could have done that with just seeing them running up against each other against a wall or something.
Right. Like a passionate reunion. Could have been misconstrued, especially by Lizzie.
Yeah.
And she causes all those issues later in the story because of her not knowing.
It's
and
like an episode of Three's Company. All these misunderstandings.
Yeah. This I'm looking at this section and just cracking up. They're so mean. They're so mad at each other. And he's like whispering in her ear, "Tell him it's all right. Tell him you know me." And I should be like, what?
You sound like a psycho. Like, no wonder Lizzie's like, she's going to be raped.
And Lizzie goes, "Miss Bree, you'll not go with yon black villain, surely." I mean, she thinks he's horrible.
Yon black villain.
Oh my God, it's terrible. And he says, "Bloody woman, you might as well walk down the street naked."
Bloody woman.
Is he Jamie? Why would he have that sensibility?
Yeah, why? They tried to say it was because he had just spent like 6 weeks on that ship and no woman was, wearing pants and whatever, but it's a very flimsy reason.
Yeah. All of a sudden he has this knee-jerk reaction to seeing an ass crack with a seam. Which she probably doesn't. They're probably the most worst fitting.
Yeah, they're probably so baggy.
Pants.
I know. I think they even say at one point, I think he says, like, they're billowy. Like, she's not wearing something super tight. It's not like she's wearing some, leggings and some yoga pants.
She's wearing what Jasmine wears in what's that Disney carpet movie?
Aladdin.
A whole new world.
Oh gosh. But it's the whole thing, her telling him like, "Why are you here? What are we going to do?" Like, there's not a whole lot of sense in any of it. And it's real frustrating. We already talked about how like their romance is not super romantic. And this is at the very least, you would think maybe they could have a print shop type of reunion, and they just don't. They have this like weird blow up with each other that doesn't even really lead anywhere romantic, although it does lead somewhere sexy. So let's talk about the sexiness.
Doing it in front of a horse in a shed next to a tractor. And they go down on each other. And she learned it from a book.
I love that she learned it from a book.
Yes.
Right.
Like, that's a skill you need to brush up on before going back in time.
And yet, we don't know. I'm disappointed because she doesn't tell us whether he's cut or not, because she decides to definitely tell us that about Stephen Bonnet. I'm like, what?
Ugh.
Yes.
You know, if he's from the 60s in the UK, he's probably not.
I'm sure he's not.
He couldn't have been any cleaner than Stephen Bonnet.
Yeah.
No.
At all.
And we do discuss, like, and we've discussed it before, there's not a single dude in the entire Outlander universe who would be cut, except for she meets a Rothschild at one point.
Did she meet a Jew ever?
Of course she meets a Rothschild. I would just like to throw that in there.
He was like the
Of
original one too, you know. He wasn't even. He was going by like a special
sure
name.
She did.
She meets great-great-grandfather Rothschild, who's just a lowly clerk who has
I remember that.
including he doesn't have his foreskin.
Does she mention it though?
No, she doesn't. It doesn't happen. But
I think this is that's the only moment where foreskin is mentioned.
with Stephen Bonnet,
Yeah.
Well, she's got it right in her face. Well, doesn't
She had Rogers right in her face.
She licked
Girl.
it.
She liked it.
okay. We're going there already, so I'm just gonna let's discuss Steve. Well, okay. Let's table Stephen Bonnet, the Stephen Bonnet section for just a second, and talk about Roger, because I do want to get into the Stephen Bonnet sex scene. There's a point I want to make about it, but them getting married is also really strange to me in this particular section. What did you guys think of the hand fasting? And Nikki, it's the first time you read about it. Did you know that this was happening? What did you think?
I knew it was going to happen because I think we talked about it, but it was not romantic. I just felt like it was nice that Roger knew all this stuff, but I just felt like there was no lead up. There was that weirdo, like you said, like just odd meeting in the tavern, and then they run in the back. Like there was it just wasn't earned. Like later in the story, there are much more emotional reunions and emotional storylines. This was like, oh, we're essentially engaged / common law married, and why? You know, it's a little blah.
Yeah, there's so much time between when he asked her on that bridge, which also felt not earned, and this particular reunion, which is the first time we've seen each other since then. And he even tells her in this reunion, I thought you'd found somebody else because your letters started being so distant. And then I found out you had left, and I freaked out. And so it doesn't feel earned at all for him to just, I think everything he says to her about them moving forward and being married is cut off. They have these long conversations about how she found the notice of the Frasers and what she did to get there and what he did to get there. And they have these long conversations. And then when it comes to talking about the two of them and their future and being married, it's cut off. It's these short little nothing dialogue pieces at the point where if you're invested at all in them being romantic, you would want them to talk a little longer about why they want to be together and what that means. And they just don't. It's so weird.
It seems odd that she spends multiple pages on the Cooper and not multiple pages on an actual central relationship to the entire story.
She had done research into cooping.
That had to become relevant by ending up in the book.
Yeah. All of her random tangent research topics always end up in the book. And you're like, well, she read about genealogy. She read about whatever that day.
She found out about hand fasting.
I'll have to throw it in.
So I'm going to actually look, they're talking about something, and he says something about wife beating. And he says, I'd have come if you were married to the king of Siam. Siam? Is that from The King and I?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's not. That's
That's who he is, right? But what is Siam now?
like Cambodia, Laos. I don't think it's
Yeah.
actual country anymore.
No, it's not. I know
No.
it's not a country now. Okay. Anyway, so she says, he says, you said you were sure. Did you mean it? Yes.
It's Thailand.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
In Inverness, I said, you said you'd have me all or not at all. And I said, I understood. I'm sure. And then they just start kissing. And then she says, please. And he says, if I take you now, it's for always. And she says, yes. He says, come on. And then they do basically take the hand fasting thing. That's it. So they do a little vow, and they do their vows with the hand fasting, and then they do it in the barn. It's very,
It
very
reminds
fun.
me of like horny Christian teenagers who just want to have sex.
Yeah.
And they don't really think about the consequences. They just want to have sex.
Right.
Absolutely.
Mystery Redhead on Twitter says, I would not believe that hand fasting was a legally binding thing if a guy told me about it in a shed.
And I there's a lot of stuff that's like 60s references that I don't get. Like she's talking about something and she says, no, the beast is like a rope, and they're laughing, and she says, like a snake, maybe a cobra. And then she's like, he says something, he had a friend who called it Mr. Happy. It is so unsexy. This whole like jokey, it reminds me of like, I don't want to say it reminds me of, but like, it's not super, these jokes are not fun. They're not sexy. And it's like,
do you guys follow Nicole Cliff on Twitter? Because someone had sent in a question to Reddit because his girlfriend was using her vaginal lips to talk to him in the voice of Grover. And he was losing he would get soft when he would look at her cooch after that. And that's what it reminds me of.
Oh.
yeah,
I think people who lived through the 60s like get all of the references, and they're like, oh yeah, the rope and the beast and the whoever.
And there was lots of sex happening in sheds in the 60s, I would imagine. So.
and in the 90s. But how do I keep talking about that? I don't know why I'm saying things like that. But anyway, I don't know. Like they're okay. Like when she sees Claire for the first time, and Claire says, "I didn't expect," and she says, "Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition."
Yeah.
I get it.
When that happened,
reference.
I get the reference when that happened. I was
Yeah,
like,
but
oh,
was that out already?
yes, in the 60s.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Brianna's a dork. Like, she just referenced Monty Python. Like, not that that's not funny, but was not cool. It is still not cool, you know?
It never would, like, it doesn't seem at all something that Claire would have known.
Oh, I doubt that. Claire was like, oh, I think that might have been a Beatles song.
Oh, yeah. She's like, I don't know what pop groups are at this point. I can't keep up with the pop groups.
Yeah.
So she got
God.
the Monty Python reference? Like,
No, the Spanish
doesn't know the
Inquisition. The Spanish Inquisition episode was 1970.
Oh.
really?
Oh, that's
So,
interesting.
Someone needs to.
Someone let Diana know.
Someone tweet her and actually the shit out of that, please.
That's funny.
Unless it's like a very long game that she's playing and somehow she'll have already like time traveled forward and then backward and
Well, that's how she'll explain it. Like, there's no
Conspiracy.
reason why Jamie really appears in book 1, but it's all part of the plan.
Yeah,
We'll find out in 30 years when the series is over.
when she writes a novella about Lord John Grey and throws in a little Jamie reference.
When Claire and Bree have to go back to the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
That's why they say that. And they knew they were going to have to do that back then. And it came back anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is that kind of stuff isn't fun to me. Like, that stuff is dumb. Like, I don't know. I feel the same way about almost any book where the pop culture references are super dated.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't love it. I
don't mind it if it seems like something the characters would do.
Yes, yeah.
What's her name? Who wrote White Teeth? What's her name? Zadie Smith. She does it a lot in her books, but it's very true to the character.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right, because Nick Hornby does that all the time. Like all of Nick Hornby's books are like super music and pop culture-y, and they all have a ton of stuff, and I'm into it. Even Rainbow Rowell does it a lot. Her books are set in a specific time.
Has a ton of pop culture references.
Yes,
which kind of turned me off.
I guess it depends on the genre.
Depends on how it's done too. Like it just informed me a whole lot about that character when she dropped that line. I was like, oh, Diana's dork too.
It just felt really weird. It's just I don't love it. So how do we feel about the sex scenes themselves between Roger and Bree? Brittany, my friend Brittany, just said there's literally nothing sexy about Roger and Bree.
Oh.
I just glanced down and it says he could smell his own sweat. He could smell hers, smell the faint tang of fear that tinged her desire. Faint tang tinged is just a really, really weird synaptic. Like that's a very strange thing to say out loud. Faint tang of fear that tinged her desire. Anyway, gross. Gross, Roger and Bree. I don't want to hear about your sweats.
Yeah. I just spent the whole time reading it and like cringing, imagining it played out in season 4 with Sophie and Rick, because I feel like they have zero chemistry. So
that's like, going to be the test.
Oh God, I don't want to see this on TV.
Well, I mean, I don't really like any sex scenes on television with people that I feel like I kind of know well-ish. I don't know them, but I always feel uncomfortable if I know the actors really well.
And if you've like met them in person, I would imagine.
Or if I just know anything about their personal lives. Like I don't know, like John Krasinski was doing that terrible show. And the one thing that I fast forwarded in that whole series, the Jack Ryan series, was the sex scene. I was like, nope, don't want to see it. Can't handle it. Don't like it. I didn't like it at all. And I love John Krasinski. Just couldn't watch it. Like I always feel super uncomfortable. So I mean, maybe I'll be fine with their sex scenes because I don't really know them at all. And I don't really care.
I mean, they can bring the heat. Like someone needs to make their relationship more exciting and believable in the story. So
that's because
I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Sam and Kate can bring the heat, but I don't know if she can fake her way through someone eating her out. Who the hell knows?
In a shed.
I do like the afterward with Bree and Roger. Like I don't love the sex scenes, but I do like she's kind of like, oh, was it okay? And he's like, yeah, like, yes, it was great. And I do like their kind of afterglow kind of chat. And then just like even the tentative, like doing it again, I think is good. And probably the most romantic thing that happens between the two of them is that.
Well, but she doesn't describe at all that he's totally just like coming on her stomach. Like, I feel like that's kind of it's like she saves that for later, is to be like, oh no.
Yeah.
Who's the daddy?
And this is the one thing I kind of want to discuss as far as the sex scenes go. This one can get us into Stephen Bonnet. And is the point that I wanted to make about that is that when you're doing, I think, having read lots of sex scenes in my day, I think that if you're doing that and you're being specific about body parts, you're being specific about actions, and you're being specific about how those actions are affecting the character emotionally and physically, you kind of have to carry that through to the end. You don't get to all of a sudden fading to black is not great if you've been very, very specific in the lead up, and also kind of leaving it, metaphorically at the end is not great if you've been specific. So if you're using specific words for body parts and you're talking about exactly what they're doing and how they're dressed and how things come out and all that kind of stuff, and then you just kind of skim over the ending, you've kind of cut that sex scene short of what you built up something that didn't go to the right place. So the fact that she doesn't put that he's pulling out and like what that would mean necessarily, like he does say something about their skin is cooling and
she's a mess.
Yeah, she's a mess, and he gives her his shirt.
But she's an extra mess that we're not getting that part of it, is what I'm saying. They
Yes.
did it 3 times. I mean, she's just a sticky, gooey mess.
Right.
Yeah. And clearly Diana's trying to hide that because she's going to later reveal all of this information about that meetup and then what happens with Bonnet. But yeah, I mean, she's hiding it on purpose.
Yeah. And I think there's also something to be said for Brianna not knowing, honestly, like not knowing whether or not he enjoyed it because he was pulling out. Like, I mean, there's
You think they would have like talked about it? Like, hey, what was that business on my stomach? What were you doing there?
Yeah. I don't
Unless she read it in the book, like right after How to Give Head.
Yeah. I think she would have still been like, what is happening? Like,
because when guys get ready to do it and they're getting ready to do that, the pull out, they love to announce it. Like, I just feel like that's inherently male.
Yeah, probably. So there's that aspect of it. And that leads me to the Stephen Bonnet aspect of that particular sex scene because I'm sorry.
Can I interrupt you really quick? I am very interested that you call it a sex scene because I feel like it is written as a sex scene. It is not written as a rape scene. It is not written with any real terror or true threat. The way that it's written, his attitude, the whole Benny Hill aspect of like when she goes out, and she gets tripped, and the way he names his dick Leroy or whatever, the king, and the whole thing it bugs the shit out of me, this scene, because of the way that it's written. It wants to have it both ways. It wants you to be titillated. It kind of wants you to enjoy this like rape fantasy thing or enjoy Stephen Bonnet. I don't know. It's not right.
Do you think she did it that purposely? Because later when Brianna and Jamie, I think, are talking, or maybe it was with Claire, she pretty much says, I didn't fight back enough. I didn't do enough. And are we seeing it from her point of view that she's not doing enough? I don't know.
And Amy just made my point for me, which is that scene is not, there is too much titillation in that scene. It is written like a sex scene. It is not written like an assault scene. It is not written like a rape scene. There's very little fear involved in it, even though he's hitting her at one point. And there is too much description of her bodice and how he gets to her nipples and how he gets in between her thighs and what that feels like. And it is very graphic, but not in a rapacious way. It's graphic sexually. It's meant to titillate. And it is very offensive because of that. It's not, and I don't think that it's an intentional like
choice.
I think it's not like I don't think that it's like, oh, I'm going to make this sex scene with this hot, sexy pirate guy be hot and make you conflicted about it. I genuinely think that she doesn't have any, why? I mean, like, why in the world would it be a titillating scene if it's a rape scene that then Brianna goes on to have like major, major trauma over instead of being something that is scary? The Leroy part is ridiculous. The description of the way that he's undressing and what she goes through, all of it is a regular.
Her taking the money at the end. It was like, really, I was like, ew, why'd you add that? That was weird.
And I think that fans' reaction to Stephen Bonnet being cast, I think, proved that it titillated a lot of the barbs. They were like, oh, he's so good looking. Like, he's a rapist.
Is he supposed to be good looking? Because I feel like he wasn't described as good looking. Like, I thought he was a gross, disgusting sea captain who raped her. So I wasn't like, oh, he's hot.
I mean, the only thing I really particularly remember is his green eyes or, whatever. Yeah. I think he's not supposed to be unattractive. I do remember her talking about his decaying teeth at some point. But again, she's going into detail about how many times he's kissing her. This is a love scene. It's not a rape scene. And it's I don't know if it's meant to be reminiscent of Jamie's scenes in book 1 or what, but I really hate the way that scene is written, especially considering the fact that there's other romantic parts of Bree's life that are skimmed over, and they're just not, they're not sweet. They're not romantic. They don't have any gravitas in that way. And yet this has all of the trappings of a romance novel scene without the actual hero and consent.
Yes.
And there's not even a tang of fear. Like, you don't really, she doesn't describe Brianna as being afraid or have any kind of panic, or like, she doesn't really tell what Bree is going through. Like, Bree's pretty passive descriptively.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that's why it doesn't feel scary.
Yeah.
Because all the attention is on Steve and Bonnet and not her reaction to being raped.
Yeah. And I guess there's the possibility that because of where it is narratively, it's in the section where Bree is telling Claire what happened kind of robotically. It's months after it's happened. She's been keeping it a secret, and Diana's been keeping it a secret from the reader. And so we're getting kind of maybe the shock and trauma PTSD, but she's kind of dealt with it and held it in for so long. So we're getting the actual facts and no embellishment and no idea about like where her emotions are. There's that aspect of it that I maybe could believe is what's going on if there was not this other part of this section, which is Jamie disbelieving that she was really raped several times.
Yes.
So
Like she's lying.
let's discuss. There's 2 more things I want to discuss. This is one, and then there's one more. We only have a few more minutes. So I want to discuss. Jamie goes into this section of the book, or when he finds out that she's been raped, and he goes into it with her, and he's talking to her about it. And he's like, is there this chance that you really wanted it and you're lying a bit? Like, he flat out is like, are you making a false accusation against this guy? And it makes me hate Jamie a little bit. And then he has this weird thing that he does. It's very reminiscent of what Claire does to him at the end of book 1, where he like fake holds her down, gets her where she's can't be released, and like proves that he could overpower her even if she wanted to kill him, which is super weird coming from your dad. Yeah. And then he's like, I had to show you that you couldn't do it. I couldn't just tell you that you couldn't do it. I had to like kind of exercise that demon for you. And you're like, okay, Jamie is still good. He's still a good guy. And then he does it again after he's beat up Roger. We didn't know it was Roger. Says to her again, are you sure you didn't just want it? And knowing that the reason that he doesn't kill Roger outright, is what we find out at the end of this. The reason he doesn't kill Roger outright is because he has an attack of maybe my daughter is lying because this rapist, he thinks is a rapist, says she wanted it.
Yeah.
The rapist saying that his daughter wanted it is the one thing that keeps him from killing the rapist, because he doesn't want the murder of a willing participant on his conscience.
That's messed up.
I can't even begin to tell you, when I was rereading this today, how sickened I was by my most favorite male character of all time having this super convoluted, problematic view of consent or even just honor. I do not get it. I didn't want him to kill Roger, obviously, even if he thought Roger was the rapist. I guess in that time frame, like I get that maybe he would have killed him and we would have been okay with that. But like, what gave him pause is the weirdest freaking thing I've ever heard in my whole life. And I couldn't handle it. And I want to hear y'all's thoughts.
I'm just sitting here shaking my head the whole time you're talking because it was the dumbest thing I've read. And I was like, wait a second, like he has to do this because of this convoluted, stupid storyline that, mistaken identities or whatever that make this character now have to do things that are very anti-Jamie. And I was reading it the whole time going, he's a rape victim himself. Who would ever say this? Like, I mean, she could literally be like, oh, did you want it from Blackjack Randall? Like, no.
It kind of goes to the distinction he made. We're like, well, if they just rape your body, but like don't really know
Yes.
you, you'll be fine. But when they rape your body and your mind, like his experience, then it takes you longer to get over it. Like I really struggled with that. Like he's telling her, nope, you only had like this type of rape. You'll be okay.
And it's very upsetting knowing that the author wants this character, Jamie, to be kind of the king of men, flawed, but yet in the end, he's always kind of perfect and, you know, he's kind of a dum-dum, but he gets there eventually. It's very disconcerting to figure out or to think that the author has kind of weird views about consent and what is consent and what is acceptable. Like why, like the white male patriarchy affects us all, and you know Jamie is no exception, and maybe Diana Gabaldon isn't either. Like I just feel like it consistently comes through. I feel like there's so many rapes in this book, and only 2 have seemed really terrible and fearful for me. One was Jamie in the first book, even though I feel like she definitely skirts the line in that one and wants you to kind of think it's sort of hot. But the one with Claire where she almost chokes to death, but the rape part of it really is so superfluous to her having a bloody nose and being gagged and almost dying that way. That's where the true fear is from, not from being raped. Yes. So, I mean, my hope is that, you know, cooler heads will prevail when it comes to the making of this TV show, and we don't have to have Brianna endure this plot point, because again, she can have sex with him willingly in this show to create this conundrum of who's the daddy, and still have, because again, the rape with Bonnet has nothing to do really with the confusion that Lizzie could bring to the whole situation. So she was attacked, she was raped. They still have that at their disposal.
Yeah, I think that what they're going to miss without the Stephen Bonnet rape is this particular plot point, is Jamie sending Roger off to the Iroquois instead of killing him outright, because he thinks that there's a possibility that his daughter wanted it and wasn't raped.
Yeah.
Which is just, and then again, at the same time, on overlaying all of this is the fact that Brianna hasn't been honest with him or with Claire fully. She still, at this point, has not told them that she and Roger were married. She's never told Jamie about having sex with Roger at all. She only lets him believe that she was raped and that's why she's pregnant.
Yeah.
I don't get how she can like scream at him and call him a bastard and wish she never met him, but like not tell him these things.
Right. Yeah. There's
the heat of the moment.
Yeah. What is the thinking behind her not sharing the full truth at this moment? Like she's wanting Roger to appear. All this terrible shit has happened. Why are you not just sharing the truth of the matter so that all of this can be avoided?
And she says several times, like, I'm not marrying anyone. I'm not marrying anyone. And you want to be like,
because you're already married.
Yeah. Eventually I thought she was going to go, because I married Roger. And like, she didn't. How in the world is she holding on to that little tidbit?
Right.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Okay. On top of that, the next thing that I want to discuss is the fact that Claire is seriously considering and figuring out how to abort this baby, if that's what Brianna wants. And the argument with Jamie aside, the argument for choice in this section is excellent. I mean, it's excellent coming from a mother and a physician who's never performed an abortion, but absolutely 100% would for her daughter in this situation, or just because, and doesn't say it's because it's it's not because it's about rape. It's not because of that. It is simply because it's not even really about like her fear for her in that time period or whatever. It really 100% is about the fact that it's doing violence to Brianna. It's going to do a violence to her if she's forced to bring this child into the world and doesn't want it and can't deal with it. And it's pretty different than what we're just now talking about coming from this particular author.
Coming from a Catholic author, it was pretty revolutionary.
And I've said in the past that Claire seems really pro-life. So yeah, it's interesting. It's a turn.
Yeah, it is.
But it's also it's so indicative of how people decide for themselves. They sometimes don't have empathy. They have to experience something for themselves before they actually get on board with what the right thing to do is.
Right. Yeah, I've said several times, having discussions with people that for pro-life versus pro-choice, and I look at them like, okay, it's your 15-year-old daughter, and it wasn't rape and it wasn't whatever. She just is dumb. She got pregnant. Like, you're really, and then they really have to like nail it down to what they really believe in when it comes to them. And I think that Claire is at that point, but Claire's also been at that point for other people in the past. She's capable of being empathetic to women all over because of her experience as a mother, and at her experience with a miscarriage, and her experience, or stillborn, and her experience just like knowing that a child itself is such a violence to yourself because it changes so much about what you have to be and who you are and where you go and all of that kind of stuff. And she's like, I'll give her whatever choice she wants.
Right.
And it was illuminating just to read it in this particular book from Diana, especially because we're talking so much about how problematic all of the rape is and all this other stuff. And then here's this progressive voice kind of coming out of someone who we wouldn't necessarily expect it from.
Do we think they will include that in the storyline of the TV show?
No, because it's interesting.
Exactly.
I think that it would be the actual way that it's written in the book would not necessarily be interesting. She's looking for a particular route and pulling out a scalpel,
Right.
and Jamie's like, what? So, but if it is something that she and Brianna like are discussing and Jamie comes upon it or whatever, I think that there are ways for them to throw that in there, and still keep it interesting. Even just Claire's internal monologue about the things that she's not even saying to Jamie when he's kind of processing what's happened to Brianna and what happened to him and what that means. And all that stuff that we were just talking about, where he was saying that, you don't understand the rape of the soul, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I'm not even going to discuss this with him because he doesn't understand what having a child inside of you is like and how that soul is also, like a rape of the soul. And so she's not even like getting into how she really feels about that. So I think that if they can do that, if they can do justice to that, I would be very impressed if they can do that and do that well.
Do we know if they're keeping the same writers as Voyager, the same writers' room, or if they've brought in new?
I don't know who they've brought in new, but I know that there are writers that are gone.
Good. Sorry. Just being honest.
Yeah. I need to go back and look at all of the episodes and look at like who I liked and who I didn't, and who's still there and who isn't, to kind of decide what I think about what's coming up. So I don't know.
I stopped watching the moment she walked into the print shop. I need to catch up. I'm a little behind.
Gotta go back.
You
Get
only
ready for that.
You only have 2
sweet
weeks.
jungle scene.
The problem is there's so much good TV, and I'll be 45 on Friday, and I only have so much time left to watch TV. And from what people have told me, like I'm one episode in on that scary haunting House Hill show, and people have already said the ending sucks, and I'm like, I'm out.
Oh,
I don't have
done.
9 hours to invest to be disappointed.
I liked the ending of that show.
I also realized though, while I was opening up in the part of my house that's dark, I was going into the guest room and it's dark, and I was like, you know what? I don't don't need to. I don't need that in my life. I'm a chicken shit, and I don't need to be scared, and that's fine. That it seems like that's going to be me looking for ghosts everywhere in my house that was built in 1917, where I know someone died in this house. Like I'm all set. I'm good.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to do that if I had an old house and I knew somebody had died in it.
Oh my God! Then my child just showed up.
When you talk, you don't have to yell. I can't sleep.
Okay, close that door, baby.
Oh, it is like having a ghost in the hallway, Amy.
Awesome. Your ghost in the house.
She's such a delight.
Oh, that was delightful.
So cute.
But yeah, like I would love it if this show just got super fucking feminist, because also like people talk about like what it was like back in the day. People were trying to rid themselves of.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no birth control.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, we've talked about so many times how the Venn diagram of people who love Outlander and love conservative politics and Trump and everything else. And like, I just found out there was somebody who followed me recently on Twitter who is super, super conservative. And I was like, who is this person? They're barely following anybody. And I looked and she started following a few of us from TN, and that's normal, and Outlander stars all at once. And I was like, oh, she's an Outlander fan. Of course that makes sense. And at the same time, I want to go, why is she following any of us? We're not,
Right.
we don't have
That's
anything in
going to be a
common.
rude awakening.
We don't have anything in common except Outlander. And that's so frustrating. It's frustrating because there's that new guy that started watching the show and started tweeting about it, the guy from BuzzFeed. I can't remember his name.
Oh, yeah.
Saeed, like the radio guy.
Yeah. And he's just tweeting about it, and he starts to get Outlander people tweeting back at him. And of course, what do? They ruin it for him. They ruin it for him in all kinds of ways by saying the stuff that they say to everybody, which is just wait, trust Diana. Oh, wait till you get to episode 15. Like they're just going on and spoiling things in stupid ways. But they also ruin it by being so obtuse. Like he even said, he called out the fact that they were saying welcome to the clan to a black man.
I know.
Right. You can't say that. Like,
But-
I always thought that was a weird choice of
The Outlander
thinking.
stars people still use it, and it makes me. Sometimes you just have to accept that a word has been co-opted, and it's not. It just is cringy.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do that anymore. The Kylan clans are not what they were anymore. And so, you're not doing it anymore.
Too much baggage.
And he calls it out, and then they complain to him about calling it out. Like they, actually him to death, and he just mutes his thread. And I just want to go, I can't believe he's even still watching the show and dealing with this, other than the fact that, he got followed by, Katrina was talking to him and stuff. And so now he probably feels a little bit of an obligation to actually cover the show. But if I were him, I would just forget it because they've ruined it for him. And so I think it's just interesting because we're having all of these discussions over things that are so timely, consent and false accusations and what rape really is and like what you have to deal with when you're done with it and like all, and abortion and all this kind of stuff. And just, there's a lot of it in this book. And so much of it is not what we would want it to be. And then some of it is surprisingly progressive. And so I'm interested to see where the show goes this season. And I'm interested to see what you guys that are watching and listening to us have to think about those particular sections of this book, Drums. So tell us. Comments, I guess.
Piggybacking off that, I'm not excited for Jamie in this season because even in this discussion, like his terrible reaction to Brianna and his reaction to abortion and just how they infantilize him, I think I'm going to hate Jamie this season. I'm so afraid that they're not going to portray him and write him very well. Like there's already enough material to make him kind of look like a dick, and they'll just snowball. And
yeah.
But then they'll have grandsire Jamie.
Yes.
Aww.
Da, Jamie. I mean, I actually, there are some really wonderful moments in this section we didn't even talk about where he meets Bree we didn't talk about where they meet. Oh my God.
That was really sweet. There were so many good parts in this section, and especially the next few.
Yeah.
Them meeting while after he's done taking a leak, And he's so true to Jamie because he's like, I'm a married man. And then he was like,
Yeah.
oh, but she might need money. And he looks at her outfit. And I just think
need
it's so,
Yeah.
it's so Jamie.
It could have gone so many different ways. She had no idea what he was going to be like, seeing some girl standing on the back porch watching him pee. And he's perfect. Like, he's exactly what you would want. And then for him to like recognize himself and her face and everything is just so beautiful. And then the scene where he's comforting her at the fireplace and she's sitting on his lap and she's like, and he's like, you weigh as much as a grown deer, and all of this adorable shit. And I love how that mirrors the moment where Claire sits on his knee in front of the fireplace at Liak, which is when he says that he falls in love with her for the first time. It's just this beautiful mirroring of their relationship. And I loved it. And I loved every second of that. And then there's the weird stuff where he's like fake raping her just to get it out of her head. And it's just a lot.
That
was the weirdest.
It's a lot.
I'm so happy in the scene where she sees him peeing outside because I'm so happy for Jamie because he gets to meet his child. I mean, it's not Willie.
I was like, they're going to get Willie in there. Like, how can he bring up Willie within the first 5 minutes of meeting her?
I'm so glad that Willie was not mentioned at all in any of this. Like, it's not mentioned. He's not in Jamie's thoughts. He's not in Claire's thoughts. Brianna, I guess, doesn't know about him. And so nobody's talking about Willie. Nobody's thinking about Willie. Nobody's bringing him up. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly how it needs to be. Jamie needs to be focused on this grandbaby he's about to have and how sweet that's going to be, and not at all focused on Willie.
Yes.
Yeah. I love their kind of like shy reticence learning each other, and him taking her to hunt the bee.
On the hike.
All of that is adorable and wonderful. And I am actually, despite Sophie, and despite the fact that Sam makes me giggle when he's earnest.
Which is all the time.
Yes, so earnest. And I just can't watch it.
Well, the pictures they released of Claire's apothecary and that stuff, like that's my jam. Like, I want to see her with jars and growing penicillin. And I know it wouldn't make for exciting TV, but I just wish that Diana would give us that novella of Jamie and Claire on the ridge. I say that every week, but that's what I want, of her making potions and shit. And she can start the first Planned Parenthood in North Carolina, you know. She does breast exams, which is mostly what Planned Parenthood does, and pap smears. And
then she gets run out of the ridge.
Right.
For being a witch. Yeah, but I'm into that. I'm excited about the father-daughter cuteness. I'm going to cry a lot, I think. I'll say this. I think we could put money on the father-daughter cuteness this season, making me tear up at least once. And if it doesn't, it's going to be Sophie's fault.
Absolutely it will be. Or the writers, because somehow they've emasculated Jamie in the scene and made him into... Emasculating isn't the right word. They've just...
Infantilized him.
Infantilized him. They make him seem like a goofy 15-year-old who doesn't understand anything. Right.
Yeah. That's the other thing that I am worried about. I'm worried about Brianna, like woman's future splaining to him, like Claire does, and him being like wide-eyed with wonder. And I just gonna be like, no.
Yeah.
No. I do not want to see wide-eyed wonder Jamie with Brianna. No.
What is a Mick Jagger? Tell me more. The one thing though that I highlighted when we were reading this, the whole crux of this is that they can't change history, but I still say, yes, you can.
They do.
All you
they
had to do is
do.
put a bullet in Bonnie Prince Charlie's head, and the whole thing would have been done. So it just makes me laugh when Roger comes back through the stones and he's shaking her, like, you know, you can't change history. They tried, and I'm like, they didn't really try.
No, they didn't give it like the old try, but. Yeah. And they changed history because look what happens to Brianna. Like, that wouldn't have happened in the real world. Like, there's so many moments where I was like, that's a bullshit line. But
it just reminds me of the whole second book of where they just can't slit his throat because she's just like, oh, but then Frank would never exist. And
just tie him up in France or something for a while. And, like, whatever.
Yeah. They could have easily just killed Charlie and
him.
Things would have changed. It's bananas. We'll see how much they talk about changing the future in this one. I'm hoping it's not a lot. and listening to interviews and seeing what's been going on with them so far, I think that that's not going to be any kind of plot point at this. But I mean, she goes back to try to change what she sees as being the past. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Change the future. It's changing the past.
To change.
Was that a tagline? Like you
It
can't.
was the first year, I think. No, it was for the Bonnet
second-
year.
Yeah, the second season was.
Second season.
Yeah, they said change the future 8 million times.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they never do, and it's so dumb.
And it's
We
not
can
something
change
that's
the
ever said in
future by voting on November something.
6.
Or
Six.
now, like I did today.
Or now.
You can't vote in Little Rhodey. As much as we shit on Outlander people being conservative, my Outlander friends, I love it because you guys are like my liberal tribe of people. And big
Aw.
shout out to Melissa, who's like the Outlander recaps gal. She's like legit doing that shit in Texas. She's like a precinct captain working to get Beto elected. And I swear to God, if Ted Cruz loses, it'll be the best day of my
The best.
life.
Yeah.
And shout out to Katie, our very own
Yes!
Katie, who's
Yeah.
killing it in California.
Yes. She is killing it in California.
She is going to every door, literally.
Well, yeah, so like as much as Outlander fandom, there's a part of you that sucks, there's a part of you that's fucking awesome.
That's right. Like all of you, they're watching this right now and talking to us.
Yes.
But we're going to end here. And I promise you guys, next Monday night, it's not Halloween, right?
That's
No.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Wednesday?
I hope it's Wednesday.
Yeah, I
Halloween's my
think Monday's the
daughter's.
29th.
Okay. The 29th, we will do the last episode of In the Waterweeds. We have to because Hang Outlander is starting the next fucking week. Okay. So we don't have a choice. God. You guys.
We gotta watch that.
Too much.
If
Hang
Star's
Outlander.
offering like a free combo subscription with HBO right now, so I can
Yeah, for real.
watch it for free.
I have seen the first episode though, along with several other thousand other people, and it's good.
It's good.
Goodish.
Oh dear.
Goodish.
Well, okay. The reason I
That's
say that.
encouraging.
The reason I say that is because I think that the first episodes of season 1B and the first episode of season 3 were amazing. Like
Right.
so good.
I saw
Sure.
season 3 with you, right, in New York. That was a good episode.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we had nachos,
Great
which
episode.
Yes.
is the icing on the cake.
So those episodes were so, as opening episodes were so good. I can't remember season 2's opening episode, or so I don't remember. But
He's back in the, I think she's in the hospital, right? And Frank is like there.
Oh, yeah.
is that how it starts?
Yeah.
Huh?
I think so. Yeah, because you never see Brianna and Roger until the very end of that one.
Okay. Anywho, I absolutely 100% loved season 3's first episode, and I loved season 1B's first episode. I really loved the first episode of the whole series. So the fact that season 4 didn't like blow me away made it kind of, it was good, but it wasn't the way that the opening episodes of the other seasons have made me feel, which were
What
really,
was
really good.
1B? I don't remember that.
It's The Reckoning. It's because season 1, it's the ninth episode. So season 1 is split into 2 parts, and episode 8 it ends with Jamie in the window with pointing the gun at Blackjack.
Yes.
And so the next one is that fight, and then him and Claire like duking it out, about why she left and
Yeah.
all of that. And that episode is really excellent. So
Season
Anyway.
1 was so good.
it really was.
Mostly
really
good.
Going to
mostly
a
good.
fucking barbecue.
Yeah. Season 1 was mostly excellent.
Mostly.
There was
Yeah.
such a sense of menace of the olden times. Remember the priest episode? Like that feels like 3,000
yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Even just the witch trial and Leok,
Yeah.
like even just in Leok, just even some of the stuff that we made fun of, like the bard singing and all that kind of stuff was so good in comparison to what we're watching right now. Anyway, well, hopefully it'll be great. Anyway, next week in the Waterweeds, the last 2 parts of the book, and we will finish it up, even if it's just me and Amy. We'll be here. We'll be here. We'll duke it out. And thank you guys for watching. We will see you very soon. And get ready for Hang Outlander in just a couple of weeks. Bye.
Bye.